to the Fantasy Source Baseball Podcast. My name is David A. Arnott, sitting here with George Winkler, and today we're going to be talking about a team in Major League Baseball that has probably surprised everyone outside of a 50-mile radius of the Flats in Northeast Ohio.
Good reference. That's Cleveland, Ohio we're talking about, and they have the team with the best home record. They have the number one pick in the NBA lottery. Things are looking up.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? Let me also throw out there that they have a new coach on the NFL team.
They have a new coach in the NFL team. I feel like we should redo the start of Major League. It shouldn't be a gloomy, downtrodden Cleveland. It should be sunny, and there should be parents and kids frolicking in the park.
Well, let's talk about the players themselves. If there is any reason to frolic in the park, Asdrubal Cabrera, his performance would provide it.
Absolutely. He has 10 home runs. He's 8 for his last 9. He gets the winning hit last night against Boston. Asdrubal Cabrera has worked his way into MVP talk. I mean, very early MVP talk.
It's not just that he's doing things in real life baseball that win games. He's doing things that win seasons for fantasy managers too.
I mean, he has 10 home runs, and that is more than he hit last year, and we did not expect that from him. He has a 237 isolated power number. His career mark is 124. So, you look at that and you say, well, maybe I should sell high in Asdrubal Cabrera, but maybe not really, because he's 25 years old and could be coming into his own.
I mean, that's one of the things that I think about when I looked at his performance this year, is that unlike, say, someone like Jose Bautista, who bounced around the majors before exploding in a big way last year, Asdrubal Cabrera has always been a high-end prospect and then a guy who was considered to have tons of potential, hitting potential, and who also was considered to have a pretty good glove, so he'd stick around even if his hitting wasn't great. So you could afford, as a Major League team, to wait for that hitting to come around. And as a fantasy manager, you could always say to yourself, you know what? He's supposed to be a good hitter. The results will match up with the scouting reports soon enough.
Yeah, he's always been on my sleeper list.
Always, by the way.
Always. It's like every year this guy's on your list because he does things across categories. He could have a nice average, but last year he had an injury that limited him, and so he flew under the radar in drafts this year. But I really think he has a legitimate shot of being in the top 10 shortstops for the rest of the year, and he's higher than that right now. But he's not going to stay on this 36 home run pace, but I still think he's a top 10 shortstop.
Now, among the players that are also performing very well for Cleveland, perhaps the most surprising, even more surprising than Asdrubal Cabrera, Jack Hannahan, a guy who in the first month of the season was absolutely on fire. He's tailed off plenty in the second month of the season. But that first month, I mean, everyone who had seen him in Oakland and in Seattle had to have been thinking, this is not the same person that we saw there.
Yeah, I mean, Jack Hannahan he's the cautionary tale that comes out of Cleveland. He's the guy that, he was way above his norms, and we've seen him long enough to know that he was going to come down off that April, and sure enough, in May he has. He batted 273 in April with a 481 slugging percentage. It's down to 200 and 218 in May.
That's Jack Hannahan.
That's Jack Hannahan, and that's not the guy who's doing nature shows either, or whatever. Right. So, but yeah, if there's one place where there's some movement in the Indians lineup, it could be there. Lonnie Chisenhall's down in the minor leagues. A big prospect, of course. He's not doing too great, and he's not tearing it up down there.
Well, I mean, we see he's hitting. I think you have him listed here, 278 with a 453 slugging. The one saving grace that is that the International League is not a good hitting environment, and so you might say, all right, in your head, a little bit of adjustment there. Chisenhall, I mean, he's been their top hitting prospect since Carlos Santana came up, basically. So do you expect him to be coming up later this season?
I think so. I mean, if Hannahan continues to slump and go down like this, then they might have to make a move there.
Now, again, another slight surprise with the Indians is that their two best hitters coming into the season haven't really been tearing things up that much.
No, you're talking about Shin-Soo Choo and Carlos Santana. Choo is... I mean, he's just like clockwork, You get the 20 homers, 100 RBIs, 20 steals, maybe 90, 100 runs, and he's going to hit 300, and he does that every year, and he's not doing that this year. He's off to a 244 start, but there's plenty of time for him to get back, and there's plenty of indications within his stats that he might be getting a little bit unlucky. He's striking out more than he has in the past, and he's walking less. That sounds really simple, but if he gets those corrected, he should come back.
Now, I seem to recall reading somewhere that his walk rate, to extend a little bit on that, is actually way down from where it used to be, that he's actually only walking on something like 3% of the plate appearances, which would be a massive change for him.
Yeah, and you can't really explain it. I mean, maybe it's just a mental thing. Maybe it's just snowballed him, but I think he'll get it back. Based on his track record, he should be able to get it back.
What do you make of Santana's struggles this year? Because, to be honest, we think of him as being one of the best hitters on that team, but when you actually looked at the record, he doesn't have that many Major League at-bats under his belt before this season.
Yeah, it could have been a case where we got a little bit high on him just based on a very short sample size, but it could also be his knee. He had a serious knee injury, so I haven't heard anything to the effect that he's not healthy, but something like he had could take a year to recover from, so maybe he'll start to pick it up here soon.
Let's take a look at the pitchers. Justin Masterson has been having an excellent season. Did it again against Boston very recently. Was that last night, I think it was?
Yeah.
And he's basically answering a lot of questions that people had about him. Could he ever get lefties out? Could he ever be the kind of pitcher that you would want to throw out there every 5 days, or would he merely be regarded as a rookie, the kind of guy you bring in to get a few righties out in a row out of the bullpen?
I mean, we've been watching this guy from the start of the season, wondering when the downfall is going to come, and it hasn't come. So he's starting to look more like, hey, I'm coming into my own at 26 years old. His walks are down, which has led to fewer homers, and that's really been the key to his game. And if you look at his fielding independent pitching number, it's not that far off of his ERA. It's still a little bit higher, so there could be a little bit of a downward correction, but he's still, I think he's looking like a solid value for the rest of the season.
I mean, this is the thing about Masterson that I love, is that he's an extreme ground ball pitcher, which usually means that he allows more hits, but he would, in theory, give up a lot fewer home runs, which is how you get guys out. But when he combines that with a lot fewer walks, all of a sudden, that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, he's getting in front in the counts, he's not having to lay the ball over the plate and get it jacked out of the park. And, his strikeout rate is respectable. It's right around 7.0, so if he can continue to do that, you're looking at a great value. He's 5-2. Maybe you're looking at a guy who can win you 12 games by the time it's all said and done.
Now, the other Indian starter who's been catching a lot of fantasy managers' eyes, Josh Tomlin. Did I get his name right?
Correct.
Josh Tomlin. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's so many Tomlin. I was thinking of Mike Tomlin for some reason. Josh Tomlin is 6-1 right now. Well, how do you see his season playing out? Because if I recall correctly, he's not quite their top pitching prospect. I believe Alex White holds that distinction, and so he did come a little bit out of nowhere to do this well this quickly.
Yeah, there are actually a lot of signs that his numbers aren't for real. His fielding independent pitching is 2.41, and has a 4.25 ERA. That's a pretty decent size discrepancy. Or is it
the other way around? He has a 4.25 fielding independent and a 2.41 ERA?
Correct. Thank you for that. But, he doesn't strike out a lot of guys. Mm-hmm. So he's going to have to continue to be fine around the plate. And that's kind of the MO of this staff. They have the 6th best ERA in the majors, but the 3rd fewest Ks. So that's an indication that, well, they're going to have to be pretty darn fine on their control to continue to have the success that they're having.
Yeah, that's an interesting factoid there that actually probably has some bearing on how they're going to do the rest of the year. Fausto Carmona, we mentioned Justin Masterson, both extreme ground ball pitchers. A lot depends on what their defense does, and to a certain extent, just how hard the ground balls that they're giving up are.
Yeah, a little bit of luck, a little bit of defense. Can Cleveland keep it up? Can they keep frolicking in the parks in Cleveland?
Well, speaking as someone who believes Cleveland is thoroughly underrated, I would want them to be frolicking in the parks.
After what happened to them with LeBron, I would want that too.
All right, George. Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.